Hey guys, I'm back. I'm going to do day 2 now, and we're going to look at uh, Genesis chapter 17, verse 10. And it says, "This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised." Okay, the blood, the act of circumcision, was required as a sign of the covenant previously established with Abraham. This was not a covenant, but an external sign that Abraham and his descendants were to execute to show that they were God's covenant people. The fact that this was performed upon the male reproductive organ had at least a twofold significance. One, the cutting away of the foreskin spoke of the cutting away of fleshly dependence. And two, their hope for the future posterity and prosperity was not to rest upon their own ability. Circumcision was a statement that confidence was being placed in the promise of God and his faithfulness rather than in their own flesh. Okay, now we're going to look at Genesis 15:10. Okay. Then he brought my light went out. Sorry about that. Then he brought all these to him and cut them in two down the middle and placed each one opposite the other, but he did not cut the birds in two. All right. Genesis 15:10, the first blood sacrifice covenant. The blood. The direct requirement of a blood sacrifice as the means of establishing covenant first appears in this epistle and God's instruction to Abraham. The animals to be offered were selected, cut in half, and arranged in proper order opposite one another. The covenant parties then passed between the halves, indicating that they were irrevocably bound together in blood. The cutting in halves of the sacrifice spoke of the end of existing lives for the sake of establishing a new bond or covenant. The sacred nature of this bond was attested to by the shedding of life blood. In this instance, only God passed between the pieces, indicating that it was his covenant and he would assume responsibility for its administration. Present in this account of covenant making are three essential ingredients: a bond that originates from God's initiative, the offering of a blood sacrifice as a requirement of covenant, and God's sovereign administration of the outcome of his oath. Okay. Next, we're going to look at Leviticus 17:11. Okay. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that makes atonement for the soul. Okay. 17:11, the word blood in the Strongs. This highly significant word appears 360 times in the Old Testament, starting with the introduction of sacrifice, continuing through the law of Moses with the offering of the blood sacrifices, appearing in Leviticus about 60 times, and culminating in the sacrifice of God's sinless Lamb. Thus, atonement through shed blood is an inescapable spiritual teaching. This text teaches the value of blood. It is the life of man and animal. Therefore, sacrifice is a life for a life. God has provided blood to cover sin. Finally, the blood actually makes atonement for the soul, that is to say, human life. Accordingly, verse 12 shows that blood, being for these vital purposes, is much too sacred to be misused, especially by drinking it. Also, no blood, no atonement. This is the clear statement of necessity of blood as it relates to sacrificial offerings. The life is in the blood. Life and blood were given upon the altar for the specific purpose of making atonement or attaining reconciliation with God. Apart from the shedding of blood or giving of life, there was no atonement. The established ordinance is reaffirmed in the new covenant in Hebrews. The new covenant in Christ's blood fulfillment. The new covenant in Christ's blood fulfilled the requirements of the old covenant for redemption. The blood of Christ is seen as surpassing the blood sacrifices of the old covenant and internally satisfying the requirements of a holy God. I'll be back tomorrow to share some more word with you about the blood. God bless you and have a great day. Bye-bye.